Good Sunday morning, Jacksonville. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. He's Dr. Yass, and he's going to give you the tools to live a pain-free life. There are 3 ways to get involved. Call us and talk to Dr. Yass at 904-641-1010. Text your question for Dr. Yass to the text line brought to you by our good friends at Lifetime Enclosures at 904-641-1010. You can also watch us on the live stream on the 1010XL YouTube channel. Last week, we explained the monetary value of the Yass Method, and this week we will return to the Hip Hoedown because the hip region affects every aspect of the body and affects all aspects of function. It warrants an entire show to discuss. Welcome, Dr. Yass. Great to see you. It's time for the Hip Hoedown.
Thanks again. Good morning, Matt. Happy Sunday morning to you. And in fact, it is time for the Hip Hoedown again.
All right, now explain to everyone why the hip is so critical.
So, as I began to discuss last week, every joint has its purpose. And so when we talk about the hip area, it's responsible for creating stability, balance. It's where weight bearing is developed. So if we look at the knee is really there for range of motion, for function, locomotion. It allows you to go up and down. It allows you to go forward and back. The foot is designed to absorb different textures that might be on the ground. So that's why it's so mobile and allows you to still achieve some sort of proper weight bearing, even if there's an uneven surface that's there. Well, the hip is all about allowing you to respond to gravity. So I wanted to discuss all the aspects of the hip joint and how it affects function at different joints. How does it relate to weight bearing? How does it relate to balance? How does it relate to moving, whether it's standing or walking or climbing stairs? So I wanted to hit this fully, and it's so in-depth, and people don't have any understanding of this. My friend John, who is a layperson who we've been working with regarding hip issues, felt that his understanding has developed so extremely due to the work I've done with him that he felt that people really need to get this whole understanding to understand its impact. So to start, the hip joint is where the pelvis connects to the leg. And here's kind of a quick
If
picture.
you're watching on the YouTube live stream on 1010XL, Dr. Yass is holding up various
illustrations.
Various illustrations, I guess is the best way to say it,
Yep.
With the hip, and he's going to go through them. And if not, he'll do his best to speak so you can see through listening. How about that, Dr. Yass?
Sure. And what I would suggest to anybody who's listening live or hears this after the fact, you could simply get an atlas picture. Just Google the hip joint, and you'll be able to see these types of pictures. So here you can see that the pelvis is connecting into the leg at the hip joint, and what you notice about the leg bone, the thigh bone, is that the connection is an upward angle. And the reason that is because gravity is pushing the pelvis down onto it. So by having that upward angle, it is able to secure the weight of your entire body at the hip joint. So it is the primary joint where weight bearing occurs. Balance and stability are involved here. And that is because when you take one leg off the floor, obviously you're only weight bearing on one side of your body, so you'd assume yourself to simply tilt to the other side. Well, there is a muscle, which is probably the most important muscle in the body, called the gluteus medius muscle, which actually attaches from the hip, the pelvis, to the hip joint. And what it does is, if you take the side of the pelvis and it's to contract and pull down, it creates a downward force on the side that it's contracting, but it creates an upward force on the opposite side, which is a suspension force. By creating that suspension force, if it creates enough of a force, it can support the weight of your leg that's no longer on the floor. So if that leg is on the floor and the gluteus medius works properly, well, you could weight bear on the leg that you're standing on with your pelvis level, which allows you to have optimal balance.
All right, I want to stop you right here, okay? Because I think this is really important, and I think you need to stress this. You said it might be the most important muscle in the body. That's number one. It not only just holds your legs, it literally holds your body upright, correct?
Without any question. We couldn't be human and only exist with two legs without an increased size and strength of the gluteus medius. If you look at the ape, he can only take 5 or 6 steps before he has to put his front legs down.
Right.
The reason is because if you look at his pelvis compared to his torso, his pelvis is the 10th of the size of his torso, which means that it's not able, with one leg off the floor, to keep the pelvis upright above that hip joint. So he falls. So the way he has to walk is he kind of waddles, if you ever watched an ape. Well, look at a person who maybe unfortunately had a couple of failed bilateral hip replacements.
Same thing.
Yeah, that's right. They waddle. Everyone talks about when they have some deficit at the hip, there's this waddling occurs. And it's important to understand that waddling is not occurring because there's some deficit of the joint structure. It is because the muscle that's responsible for allowing you to weight bear on one leg is failing. It's not strong enough.
And when that gluteus medius fails, that's a significant issue.
It is probably the most significant issue that can happen to people because you must understand that your pelvis is the foundation of the body. So when your pelvis is level, the distance that your feet have to travel to the ground is equal. But if your pelvis isn't level, say one glute med strained and you're one of these people, if you put your hands on the top of your pelvic rims, the sides of your pelvis, and you see one hand is higher than the other, well, that's going to lead to a greater distance on one side, which means you can't possibly be weight-bearing equally.
Okay, so we need to say this, okay? And this is very important because I think what you're doing technically is fantastic. I want to explain to these guys that when you have a deficit in your gluteus medius, you're not going to feel it in your gluteus medius. You ready for this now? You're going to feel it in your back. You're going to feel it in your knees. You're going to feel it in your Achilles like I did. Mitchell, that's the key. Explain to them you're not going to feel the deficit in your gluteus medius.
Right.
It's everything that it supports.
Everything else.
Right.
So the body works as a chain. You have all these joints that are allowing you to weight bear. So if one breaks down, others will have to compensate because your brain still wants you to perform your activity. So when that glute med breaks down, it's going to lead to compensation somewhere else. That compensation is what eventually leads to another muscle straining and eventually eliciting pain, which is why I have said forever that in more than 99.9% of cases, the cause of pain is not where you are experiencing that pain.
It's the other muscles overworking to compensate, correct?
Absolutely.
That's as simple as you can say it.
It is as clear as that. Once that glute med breaks down and you no longer are weight-bearing with a level foundation, over time doing activity, you will have a breakdown.
All right, 904-641-1010. If you want to call Dr. Yass and suddenly it's all come clear to you, you realize now that, yeah, this is definitely what's going on. If you got a question for him, give us a call. You can text on the text line, same number, 904-641-1010. And if you want to call Dr. Yass and schedule an appointment, that's 904-906-YASS, or go online, livewithoutpains.com. That's plural, livewithoutpains.com, and set up an appointment. Mitchell, by the way, those appointments can be in-house or Zoom. Continue with the hip hoedown, my friend.
Sure. So if I could just give a very quick example. So yesterday, I had a lady call me from South Florida, and we did a Zoom session. She had pain in her forefoot, and it was impeding her weight bearing so much that she couldn't even walk. She had just begun playing pickleball, which was probably the trigger, and so she had this pain in her foot. She was told she may have a stress fracture, and their answer was stop doing everything. So she became disheartened and called me. We do the evaluation, and a test for whether the glute med is strong or not is a single leg stand test, and she couldn't do it on that side. She would fall. She kept falling.
Now, explain the single leg. It's very simple. Explain the test.
Real simple. You just stand on one leg and see how well you balance, and then you stand on the other leg and see how well you balance. And if you can't stand as easily, that indicates you've got a glute med deficit. So I was able to establish that she had strained that muscle on that side, which was altering the way she weight bared through her foot. We did 4 exercises. This is on a Zoom call. She's not even in the room with me. At the end of the 4 sessions, not only did her pain go away, but we did the single leg stand test, and she did it easily without any problem. She then walked and said, my pain's gone. So what you recognize is that pain in the foot was actually due to some straining of the plantar fascia caused by weakness of what, Matt?
The gluteus medius.
There you go. So you could have pain in your foot and the cause be as far away from the hip. That's the key.
I can tell you this. I was at SEC Media Days 2 weeks ago. One of my friends walks up to me, and he's in a walking boot. And I said, what's wrong with you, man? He said, I've had plantar fasciitis for 3 months. He said, I just spent $700 on a PRP shot. He said, they're telling me I might need surgery. And I said, Chase, it's your gluteus medius. He said, what's that? I said, it's your muscle running down from your hip down to your knee. It's your gluteus medius. I guarantee it. I said, call this guy. I gave him your card. Call this guy. Chase calls him. Look, this is what it is. It's pretty simple. It's not what you think it is. If someone says, okay, it's your gluteus medius, then why doesn't it hurt? No, it's just in deficit. It needs to be strengthened, right?
That's all it is.
All right. It's very simple. We're going to get further into it. When we come back, we're going to jump further on the hip hoedown, and we'll have our weekly testimony. We're just getting started here. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Ed Hayes. He's Mitchell Yass. Mitchell, before we go further, I just want to reestablish what happened with me when I walked into your office a year ago, and I was like, it's my Achilles, and you looked at me, did your evaluation, you said, lay down, I'm gonna massage your gluteus medius. And I said, no, it's my Achilles. You said, no, it's your gluteus medius.
Right.
And this kind of leads into what we were talking about last week with the value, the added value of what Mitchell's method does compared to 10 PT appointments, compared to 2 PRP shots, compared to buying a TENS machine, buying a walking boot. You go in, he evaluates, this is your problem, this is your muscle in deficit, here are the exercises you need to do. They're not difficult exercises. You can do them with weight bands. They're simple. You get yourself out of pain. You can do it. He'll show you how to do it. You do it, and that's it. That's the value in the Yass Method. Now, let's return to gluteus medius because it's so important.
So, in terms of what Matt's talking about, this value proposition, when we talk about the evaluation, people go to doctors and they get what is called an evaluation in terms of an orthopedist or a neurologist. Typically, that means getting an X-ray or an MRI. But because the Yass Method is designed to interpret symptoms, and those symptoms are representative of a tissue in distress, if it is a muscular cause, there are certain symptoms beyond your pain that are going to be presented, one of which is if you can single leg stand and squat equally or not. If you can't, and that's happening at the time of your pain, it must be seen as a corroborating symptom that your cause is muscular, and it helps lead to which muscle. So in Matt's particular case, what I noticed was he single leg stood on the right, which was where his pain was on his Achilles. But when I asked him to single leg stand on the left, he couldn't at all. He just kept falling to the right. And what that represents is that his glute med on the left was weak. He couldn't weight bear. And this is kind of what ends up happening. So
if you're looking online on the 1010XL live stream.
Right. Or what I'm basically showing you is a picture of the first picture shows a guy where his center of mass is between his feet because his glute meds are strong and equal. So he's weight-bearing 50% on both sides. But this was Matt. His left glute med strained. It couldn't support him, and the pain of the weakness was so great that it led him to weight bear on his right side more. Look at the indication that the weight bearing became excessive on the right side. Well, when he became excessively weight bearing on the right and he had to push off to walk, that led him to have to use his calf excessively to do that. And as a result of that, it strained. When it strained, it caused an alteration in the forces in his Achilles, which is why he had the Achilles problem. So amazingly, the left glute med being weak was the cause of the alteration in forces that led to the calf straining and his Achilles tendon pain.
So let me explain this one more time. My Achilles pain, which was debilitating, it took me 25 minutes to stretch it out, okay? To stretch it out in the mornings. 25 minutes.
Right.
So I walked into Mitchell's office and he said, single leg on your right. I said, there's no way, I can't do it. He said, just do it. And I did it. And I stood there and it was fine. He said, now go on your left, which was not the bad Achilles. And I couldn't stand for 2 seconds. So it's the muscle in distress, not where you're hurting.
Correct. So the other corroborating symptoms were I pressed on his glute med, he went through the roof, and then I muscle tested him, and it was extremely weak. All the indications within that evaluation indicated I was correct. The cause of the Achilles tendon pain on the right was a left weak glute med.
All right, let's go to this week's testimony. Mitchell, let's bring our guest in.
Okay, so we're going to have Kajal coming on, and basically Kajal I've been friends with for a while. I met her because her husband was having severe lower back pain, tried a bunch of other stuff, was told it was a herniated disc. I had the chance to work with him, and before you knew it, the pain had resolved. Because of that, she gained more confidence in me, and she ended up having me referring a bunch of other people to me, and as a result, she's just going to come on and talk about these different situations. So,
Kajal, good morning.
Hi there.
Hi, Kajal.
Hi there, Dr. Yass.
How are you? Thanks for coming on.
Sure.
So I understand your husband's going to come on in a second and talk about what I did with him and how it's affected his ability to function at the level he wants to. But the kind of funniest story that I just wanted to bring out was when we had your cousin who was on a cruise in South Africa and ended up having massive gluteal region pain to the point where he wasn't going to be able to enjoy himself on the cruise. And you were able to get me in touch with him, and we did a Zoom session in the gym on the cruise, and we were able to resolve his symptoms. So if you could just kind of recount that a little bit.
Absolutely. I have been talking to him about what great results my husband got with his experience and his treatment from you. And my cousin is very active in the gym, and he works out on a regular basis. So, he's always had lower back pain, and he was on this cruise, and I think it was day 2 of the cruise, and it was a 2-week cruise. And he was in a panic because he could barely get out of bed. And he reached out to me and said, can you give me Dr. Yass's phone number? You think I could do a Zoom call with him? I said, absolutely. So I gave him the information, and he contacted you. And he is the biggest fan. He cannot believe his back has been better than it's ever been. He said he did some exercises with you. He was like 50% better right after the session. And the next day, he did the exercises again, and he was so grateful that he got to enjoy the whole cruise with no back pain.
It was actually really kind of funny because you got to imagine this guy's on this cruise. He's in the gym. I can see people behind him coming in and exercise, and we're doing this Zoom session. And he went through the 4 exercises. And to me, the most satisfying, it was just really humbling, is I can actually see him walking down the walkway of the floor that he was on, and he's kind of walking pretty fast now, and he's telling me, I can't believe I can walk now. I could do what I need to do. And it was really an exciting thing. And for him how devastating to be on a cruise and not be able to enjoy it. So that to me was a really special thing. And then just one other one that I wanted to talk about was I think it's your cousin in Miami who you actually had come up to Jacksonville just so I could treat her, and just how we were able to get her out of pain very quickly as well.
Right. She actually hurt her back because she was running up the stairs and didn't realize that her lower back or her hip just seized up, and she got into her hotel room and was laying on the ground for almost an hour because she could not move. And she was in excruciating pain. They tried giving her shots in her back and all kinds of different treatments, and really nothing really helped her. And that's why I recommended she come see you, because I said, look, if nothing else has worked, what do you have to lose? come try this. It may be the magic bullet.
And she came, and it was just one time, and then I gave her the series of videos of exercises, and I believe she was pretty much out of pain within 2 weeks. I think it was that much, right? It was pretty fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, and so you would acknowledge with the multiple people that I've treated, I've been pretty successful in getting each individual person back to a fully functional life and pain-free. I think you would acknowledge that, right?
Absolutely. You treated my son, who had the same issue as my husband, where his back just seized up for no reason.
By the way, he
Like
was in college at the time. I just want to
Yes.
point out, and that was another Zoom session situation.
Right. And he called me the next day in the evening after he had done a session with you, and he had gone to the gym and done what you asked him to do. And he said, Mom, it was like it never happened.
And
Wow.
and just regarding this issue, her son was following the standardized type of weightlifting guidelines that I'm doing squats
Right.
and knee extension. And it turns out he led to an imbalance in his front thigh muscles and his psoas, his hip flexor muscles, and that caused him to create an excessive arch. And that's why he had the low back pain and he couldn't stand up. And all we did was see that as the cause. Although the pain was at the lower back, it was muscles in the front of the thigh. We gave him 4 exercises, 2 of which were designed to lengthen them. And literally by the end of that series of exercises, as Kajal said, he was out of pain. And he's been able to sustain it now. And now he recognizes, for all the weightlifters, that strength isn't your initial goal. It's balance of muscle,
Right.
which has to be
So,
the answer.
Kajal, I kind of want you to stress this. Y'all were on a cruise, and your husband basically just used
Her cousin.
Your cousin, sorry.
Yeah.
Basically just used the bands. That's it, right?
No, he actually went. They had a gym.
They had a gym.
We did it in the gym.
So he was using like a leg abduction machine.
Well, a cable system.
Cable system, okay.
Right? Yep.
Okay.
And we did those exercises.
And they weren't difficult exercises, correct, Kajal?
No, they were very simple, basic. And he works out on a regular basis, so he knew exactly what Dr. Yass was telling him to do.
I've done some work with Kajal as well, so she can acknowledge the type of exercise we do. They're exercises where you're moving one joint in one direction, and it's just establishing the proper type of resistance, and that's how you isolate those muscles that are weak, that are impeding function. So that's the key to the whole thing, is just getting the right muscles, doing the right thing, and allowing for function. So
Yes, and you helped me get a lot of full extension on my right leg after my accident because I had some amount of maybe scar tissue. And I think what differentiates you from most other physical therapists, as you know, people talk about physical therapists, but I think you're completely in a league of your own, is where you actually are knowledgeable about that manipulation that you can do on a muscle or a ligament, and it kind of helps free it.
Yes.
that's that's the massage part of when a muscle's shortened. I have an ability to do a type of massage which instantly lengthens it, and in lengthening it, it has the ability to create more force. And that's why that person feels that instant relief in pain and improvement in function. So, yeah, I agree. Do you want to just have Vikas just come on real quick and just talk about his low back?
Here's Vikas. Yeah.
Hi, good morning.
Hey, brother, how you doing, man?
Good.
So I just wanted you could just recount your pain and stuff, but just talk about how great life has been since you've been doing my exercises.
Yeah, this is something like 10 years ago, by the way, I saw Dr. Yass. And, I weightlifted in high school on my own in my basement. And, we were just without any type of regimen or anything like that. And so for the longest time, from 18 to 45, I was occasionally experiencing back issues where it would just seize up and I'd have to rest for a couple of days. And then I started picking up golf in age 42, 43. And I swear, after every 18 rounds, I was laid out on the recliner for hours, just, in pain. And so I went to a back specialist, a pain doctor, and he started prescribing some hydrocodone and some muscle relaxants. He says, take these whenever you play golf or something like that. And I did that for a while, a year or so. And it kind of like, what happens is you get desensitized to that, and it wasn't working as well. And then he proposed maybe potential shots, cortisone shots in my thing, and I did not feel good about that. And I think Kajal had met you at some high school function and says, go check him out. And I was skeptical, and I went to his office, and he did some analysis of stretching my legs, watching me walk, and basically said, do these 6 exercises and for a couple of weeks and see how it works. And I did them, 2-3 weeks of them. And it was basically what he's talking about in terms of you said you had an imbalance in some form, part of your muscle structure. So you need to, over the years, you probably had this all your life. And I said, yeah. And I did them. And I will tell you that within like 3 or 4 weeks, I could play 18 holes and, I'd continue my day. And that was 10 years ago. And ever since then, I can ski. I had no problems. At the end of the day, I was as active as my children. And I haven't had an episode or an incident since then. And I haven't even done the exercise. I think you just reset it. And now I run roughly 5K every, 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm perfectly fine. And once I got my cardio up, I'm like, all right, that was fun. What am I going to do tomorrow?
So
I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. I just want to bring.
I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. Get because.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. And so when Kajal's relatives, asked me, what was your experience like? And I said, well, I got to tell you, it logically he makes sense, and even more so, the sense is just like the results, and I just have nothing but happiness that I just don't have this type of issue with any type of whenever I exert myself. So it's pretty good.
So I think I want to just make this point that people know that they have to brush their teeth to keep them healthy. They have to shampoo their hair and comb their hair. What I want people to understand about the Yass Method is that if you're going to have a high quality of life, you have to have strength and balance of muscle, because the pelvis has to be level for you to weight bear evenly in both legs, and that's going to allow the forces of gravity to run through your joints properly, and you need all the muscles required to do the activities so that they don't strain. And so I want people to think about the idea that if you're having dysfunction, it's not just a singular event. You're starting to see that you're having harder and harder time doing more and more things, and it's because you've gone out of balance. And that you got to just listen to what Vikas is saying. He can't play golf. He can't ski. He can't do anything. And you're looking at it as multiple activities, but it's not really multiple activities. Right. It's a singular cause. You just lost the strength and balance of the appropriate muscles. So when we talk about people who can't sit, who can't stand, who can't go up a flight of stairs, who can't kneel, who can't reach, stop thinking about the activity and look to the cause. And the cause in almost all of these cases, because they are describing dysfunction, is some sort of weakness or imbalance that has simply not been identified and therefore has not been resolved. And once identified and resolved, look at what we're talking about here. You get to do what you want when you want. That is the value proposition of the Yass Method. I'm giving you the chance to understand what's causing your dysfunction and allowing you to correct it quickly within weeks so that you can have the life you choose.
Right.
Okay? Well, I appreciate you guys coming on, and thanks for telling about this stuff, and I'm always there when you guys need me, so thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all. Again, you want to get hold of Mitch, you want to set an appointment, it's 904-906 YASS, or go online, Live Without Pains, plural, livewithoutpains.com. Set up an appointment. You can have an appointment in the office. You can do an appointment over Zoom. If you walk outside every day and you look in your garage and that golf bag is just sitting there leaning against the wall, you haven't played in 4 months because you got tennis elbow, or because your back hurts or your knee hurts, I mean, why give up what you love? Why give up what you love because you're in pain when you can get out of pain? It's very, very easy. Okay, we'll come back on the other side. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass, 1010XL. All right, it's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. He's Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. We are back. Let's delve deeper into the hip hoedown, Mitchell, and the gluteus medius. I'm surprised Rob doesn't jump in and go, yeehaw! Yeehaw?
I brought the music in, and everybody really got a kick out of it, so I figured we'd give it a little hit up again. So anyway, continuing with this concept of the hip and the fact that the gluteus medius, which is on the side of the pelvis and attached to the hip, I really wanted to just briefly hit all the different areas that it affects. So people, you might have pain in one of these areas. You might notice you're having this kind of dysfunction. At least now you have an understanding of why. And by the way, one critical point, many people who have pain in that hip region or gluteal region or groin region are going to be told that the cause of their pain is osteoarthritis or being bone on bone or has a bursitis or a labral tear. The important thing to understand about that is that when we're looking at the hip joint, and the hip joint basically is where the head of the femur attaches into the pelvis. If you were to have any of those particular structural deficits, you're only going to have pain at the joint itself. So if you have pain in your butt or above the side of the pelvis or on the side of the leg or in the groin, that can't possibly be coming from those structural abnormalities.
So don't let anyone tell you that's your hip and it's the structural abnormality.
Correct. And
it's not what it is.
Right. And all we want to point out is I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. All I'm saying is that those things exist, but they're not causing your pain. And those things have been shown to exist in people without pain. So the high probability is you're one of those people who has it, it's not causing the pain, and it's just another tissue creating it.
And what's that high probability? How many percent again?
So actually in the hip, this is a wild study. They did a study on people who have no pain in the hip region at all. You ready for the number? 75% was shown to have arthritic changes or labral tears who have absolutely no pain in the hip region. 3/4 of the population. That's a high. That's a high percentage. So that's why I always try to say I'm not disavowing that you have the structural abnormality. I'm just saying that it's an independent variable. It just happened to be found at the time of your pain. But if you didn't have pain and you took that same X-ray or MRI, it would still show the same thing. So let's just talk about how does the gluteus medius affect pain in the hip or groin region? Well, there's a muscle in the butt, which is called the piriformis muscle. We had, when we did our big sciatic show, we talked about the piriformis being the cause of sciatica. Well, if the glute med can't support you and allow you to single leg stand properly, that piriformis is going to try to compensate. If it strains, it can impinge on the sciatic nerve, and you will get sciatica, which is pain from the butt down the back of the leg. Not the side of the leg and not to the knee, but it has to go all the way down, typically to the foot. That is the glute med irritating the piriformis in the butt. So you'll start with butt region pain and have the symptom running down. You could have pain in your groin from this muscle being weak. That is the sartorius muscle. So that's because when that pelvis suddenly starts to fall on the opposite side, the length of the sartorius is affected and it ends up straining. So groin pain does not mean the cause is in the groin. It's actually on the outside of the pelvis from the gluteus medius. What other ones do we have there? So another one that's in that area is the part of the front thigh muscle, which is the quadriceps muscle. There's a portion of that actually attaches to the pelvis, which runs beyond the hip joint.
Right.
Again, if that glute med is weak, it's going to cause that muscle to have to compensate. And so you could end up having pain in the front of your thigh. Pain in the front of the thigh doesn't mean the cause is in the front of the thigh. Side of the pelvis, gluteus medius.
So let's go into something Kajal said, because it happened to me as well. You know how to do this massage. You have this unique massage that can immediately lengthen the gluteus medius or any muscle in deficit. And the relief there, I went from about a pain of 9 to about a pain of 3 or 4. Immediately I did. And then the exercises finished it off. But talk about that massage as well.
Sure. So just think about what we're talking about in your particular case. You had pain at your Achilles. I didn't touch your Achilles, did I?
No.
Did I ever
No.
treat your Achilles?
No, never.
That is correct, because the cause was actually the left glute med creating the improper forces on the Achilles. So once I massaged your glute med and allowed you to weight bear on that side, as soon as you stood up the first time after the massage, you could see you shifted back over to the left. So there was a decreased load on the right. The calf didn't have to work as hard, which is why you saw the immediate reduction in pain at the Achilles.
In fact, I think I said, okay, this is stupid, is what I said.
Hey, you were shocked. You thought I did a trick.
It's exactly what I thought. This is not right. There's no way this can be happening. There's no way I can limp around for a year with Achilles pain, and then all of a sudden I lay down on a table. I get massaged for maybe 3 minutes, get up, and I can walk around. It was just bizarre.
And that what that does is, by the way, if I was able to reduce the pain, by definition, especially if I didn't touch the area where the pain was, it shows I understand the cause. And it turned out to be muscular.
Right.
So one other point in the hip region, if you have pain around if you're having pain down the side of your leg, the outside of the thigh, people talk about that as ITB, iliotibial band tendinitis.
Right.
Okay, stop thinking that you're going to resolve it by addressing the iliotibial band. It's not the iliotibial band causing the problem. It's just where the symptom is being experienced. It's typically due to a weak
glute med.
Correct. And as a result, you're not weight bearing properly.
Yes, and the ITB is overworking.
Correct. It's compensating.
All right. One more segment to go here on the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. He's Mitchell Yass. It's 1010XL. Okay, one segment to go on the Pain-Free Living Hour. Again, if you want to get in touch with Dr. Yass, set up an appointment. That's an appointment in-house or a Zoom call. Call him at 904-906-YASS or go online, livewithoutpains.com. That's livewithoutpains, plural.com. Don't get into that hoedown yet, Mitchell. I know you're excited about it. All right.
Yeehaw.
We've been going after the hip and the gluteus medius. We're going to wrap it up here in this brief segment. Let's go, Mitchell.
All right, one more quickie. Just to remember what part of the body we're working on.
Yep.
It's the hip hoedown. All right, I'm going to run through a bunch of areas that have pain, and I'm going to ask Matt what he thinks the potential cause is.
All right, let's do it.
All right, it's a tough game. There's an infinite number of answers, but you're going to guess and see what you think. So, we're talking about pain in the knee region, and typically, because of the glute, I'll start to give the answer, you might see your knee caving in, which is a common thing that people will see, and they'll have pain at the inner knee, and they'll think that the cause is at the knee, but the cause is actually?
The gluteus medius.
That is correct.
All right.
It's actually causing the knee to cave in. It's not creating its outward force, and as a result, it's causing a muscle on the inside of the knee to strain and elicit pain. So if you see your knee is caving in and you're having inner knee pain, gluteus medius. Let's talk about the foot. So, you might have been told you have fallen arches. You might have a bunion. You might have plantar fasciitis. All of these are not being caused at the foot. They are being caused in the hip region, and they are being caused by the
gluteus medius.
That is correct. As a result of the fact that the gluteus medius isn't working properly, your center of mass shifts into the inside, stressing the arch. That's what leads to flattening the arch, overstretching the piriformis, causing excessive weight bearing on the first ball of the foot, which leads to a bunion. And also, the arch falling itself can be corrected by strengthening the gluteus medius and the muscles that support the arch. Okay, we're looking at the lower back. You might have pain on one side of your lower back. And you might have pain that's either towards the pelvis or at the top, at the bottom of the rib cage. And you're thinking the problem or the cause is at the lower back. The answer is the cause is from the hip region due to?
I'm going to guess gluteus medius.
It is correct. If that gluteus medius isn't working properly, that other side of the pelvis is going to fall. The lower back muscle will try to compensate. And when it compensates, it's taking a load it wasn't designed to. And as a result of that, it will strain. So gluteus medius causes lower back pain. So let's say you're walking and maybe you have a limp, or maybe you're waddling, or maybe you just have difficulty stabilizing yourself, balancing, and you're told, oh, I have poor balance. The cause of any of those walking deficits or balance issues is?
The gluteus medius.
Wow, you are very smart and perceptive. That gluteus medius.
I feel like the gluteus medius is the heavy right now. It's not. It's actually the most important muscle in your body. So
It
you
absolutely
need to
is.
protect it. Yes.
Absolutely. There's just no question about it. And because of being what it is, it affects every part of the body and all aspects of function.
Woo! Quick show. All right. He is Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour. Again, if you want to get a hold of Mitchell, 904-906-YASS, or go online, livewithoutpains.com. Set up an appointment to go in-house or on Zoom. We'll see you next week, Jacksonville. It's 1010XL.